The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by any species in the known universe. Its walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed inside. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from 47 different alien species sat in their designated sections, waiting for the announcement that would change everything. High Chancellor Vorix stood at the central podium. He was a Mendari, a species known for their scaled skin and 4 eyes. His scales shifted from deep blue to purple as he looked across the massive chamber. This color change meant he was about to say something very important. "Fellow members of the Galactic Council," Vorix began, his voice carried by invisible speakers to every corner of the room. "We have watched the human species for 30 of their years. We have offered them membership. We have offered them protection. We have offered them the wisdom of 12,000 years of galactic civilization." He paused. His 4 eyes blinked slowly. They refused everything. Sounds of anger rippled through the chamber. Clicks, whistles, growls, and frequencies beyond human hearing filled the air. The Torani delegation buzzed with fury. The Vorlani representatives stomped their heavy feet. The crystalline beings flickered with red light. Vorix raised his ceremonial staff, and silence returned. The humans continue to expand their colonies without our permission. They build weapons we have not approved. They trade with species we have banned. They act as if the council does not exist. He slammed his staff against the podium. This cannot continue. Therefore, by unanimous vote of all 47 member species, the Galactic Council declares total war upon humanity. We will send our combined fleets. We will capture their 63 colony worlds. We will occupy their home world, Earth. We will teach them that no species defies the Council. The chamber erupted in cheers. 12,000 years of galactic dominance had made the Council confident. They had conquered hundreds of species. They had crushed rebellions across 1,000 star systems. One young species from a small planet would be no different. Far across the galaxy, on a blue and green world called Earth, the declaration was received. Admiral Park Junho sat in the command center of the United Human Coalition headquarters in Seoul. He was 62 years old with silver hair and calm eyes. His face showed many years of experience and worry, but right now it showed something else. Lieutenant Yoon Hana stood next to him, reading the transmission data on her screen. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Sir," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "the declaration is confirmed. They are mobilizing their entire military force. Intelligence estimates 12,000 warships from 47 species. They will reach our outer colonies in approximately 3 weeks." Junho said nothing. He simply stared at the holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots were appearing everywhere, representing enemy fleets beginning to move toward human space. "Sir?" Hana asked. "What are your orders?" Junho leaned back in his chair, and then he did something that confused Hana completely. He smiled. It was not a nervous smile or a scared smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "Lieutenant," he said calmly, "contact General Quan Tae-woo at Military Command. Contact Director Shin Yoon-ji at the Research Division. Tell them both the same thing." "What message, sir?" "Tell them to begin Protocol Sunrise." Hana's eyes went wide. She had heard rumors about Protocol Sunrise. Everyone in the military had. But most people thought it was just a story, a legend to make soldiers feel better about their chances against the galaxy. "Sir, Protocol Sunrise is that real?" Junho stood up from his chair. He walked to the window and looked out at the city of Seoul. Millions of people were going about their daily lives, not yet knowing that the entire galaxy had just declared war on them. 30 years ago, Junho said quietly, We detected the first Council probe entering our solar system. 30 years ago, our governments made a decision. We would not trust the galaxy. We would not assume aliens came in peace. We would prepare for the worst. He turned back to Hana. For 30 years, Lieutenant, the brightest minds on Earth have been working in secret, building things, inventing things, preparing things, all for this moment. But, sir, 12,000 ships. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, Junho said. They have never lost a war. They have never faced a real challenge. They think this will be easy. He walked back to the command table and pressed a button. A new holographic display appeared, showing technical designs and strategic plans that Hana had never seen before. They made one mistake, Junho continued. They gave us 30 years to watch them, to study them, to learn their weaknesses, and humans, Lieutenant, are very good at finding weaknesses. Hana stared at the plans on the display. She did not understand most of what she was seeing, but she understood enough to know that it was advanced, very advanced. They expect us to be afraid, Junho said. They expect us to surrender or fight a hopeless war. They do not know that we have been waiting for this. They do not know what we have built. He looked at Hana with those calm, experienced eyes. The galaxy wants a war, Lieutenant, so we will give them one, but it will not be the war they expect. Hana finally found her voice. What do I tell the general and the director, sir? Junho smiled again. That same confident smile that seemed so strange in such a terrible moment. Tell them the galaxy finally decided to play, and tell them it is time to show everyone what humanity can do when we stop pretending to be weak. The message was sent within minutes. Across Earth and its colonies, secret facilities began to activate. Hidden weapons were brought online. Ships that officially did not exist started their engines. Soldiers who had trained for decades began their final preparations. The Galactic Council had declared war on humanity, and humanity smiled back, because they had been ready for 30 years. The Mendari First Fleet was the pride of the Galactic Council. 2,000 warships, each one larger than a human city. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never lost a battle. And now they were arriving at the Kepler 442 system to claim their first human colony. Fleet Commander Torvax stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars blur and then sharpen as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace. His 4 eyes scanned the tactical displays with confidence. This would be easy. The human colony on Kepler 442b had only 3 million people. Farmers, miners, scientists, no real military force. Commander, his tactical officer said, I am scanning for enemy vessels. Let me guess, Torvax replied with amusement. They have sent a small defense force that will try to look brave before surrendering. Actually, Commander, the tactical officer's voice became confused. I am detecting 7 ships. 7? Yes, Commander. 7 human vessels approaching our position. Torvax's scales flickered with what might have been laughter among his species. 7 ships against 2,000. The humans were either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. They are not retreating, the tactical officer continued. They are coming directly toward us. Open a channel, Torvax ordered. I want to accept their surrender personally. But before the channel could be opened, something strange happened. On the lead human ship, the UHC Indomitable, Captain Lee Mireille stood perfectly still on her bridge. She was 34 years old, young for a starship captain. But she had trained for this exact moment her entire career. Every simulation, every exercise, every sleepless night had led to this. Distance to enemy fleet? She asked. Lieutenant Bak Sunho checked his displays. 40,000 kilometers and closing. Sir, they are not raising their shields. They are not charging their weapons. They think we are surrendering, Mirai said quietly. Yes, sir. Good. Mirai allowed herself a small smile. Activate the cage. Deep inside all 7 human ships, machines that the galaxy had never seen before hummed to life. These were not weapons in the traditional sense. They did not fire lasers or missiles. They did something much stranger. They bent space itself. On the Mendari flagship, alarms suddenly screamed. Torvax gripped his command chair as his displays went crazy. "Commander!" the tactical officer shouted. "New contacts appearing! Hundreds of them!" "What? From where?" From the 7 ships, Commander. They have multiplied." "I am now reading 700 human vessels." Torvax felt his scales turn pale. 700 ships had appeared from nowhere. But that was just the distraction. The real weapon was invisible. It was a quantum resonance field, a technology that human scientists had developed in secret for over 20 years. This field did not destroy ships. It did something much cleverer. Every species in the Galactic Council had developed their technology under Council guidance. They all used the same basic principles for their faster-than-light drives, the same power generation methods, the same shield systems. This made them compatible with each other. It also made them vulnerable to the same attack. The quantum field spread across the Mendari fleet like an invisible wave. When it touched a ship, it disrupted the crystalline structures that powered everything. Engines stopped. Weapons went offline. Shields collapsed. Life support flickered. In less than 30 seconds, 2,000 Mendari warships became 2,000 floating pieces of metal. "What is happening?" Torvax screamed, watching his displays die one by one. "Report! Someone report!" "All systems failing, Commander. We are dead in space. The entire fleet is dead in space." Torvax stared at his dark bridge. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows across his pale scales. Around him, his crew scrambled in panic, trying to restart systems that would not respond. This was impossible. The Mendari First Fleet had never been defeated. They had weapons that could destroy moons. They had shields that could withstand nuclear explosions. And they had been stopped by 7 ships. A communication screen suddenly lit up. A human face appeared. It was Captain Mirai, looking calm and professional. "Mendari Fleet, this is Captain Lee Mirai of the United Human Coalition Navy," she said. "Your vessels have been disabled, your weapons are offline, your engines are dead. Your life support will fail in approximately 6 hours. She paused, letting those words sink in. "You have 2 options. Option 1, you surrender peacefully, and we will tow your ships to a safe location where you will be treated well and eventually return to Council space. Option 2, you refuse to surrender, and you wait for your life support to fail. Then your crews die, and we still take your ships." Torvax could not speak. His mind could not process what had happened. "We would prefer option 1, Mirai continued. "We are not monsters. We do not want to kill anyone. But make no mistake, we will do whatever is necessary to protect our people." The screen showed a timer. 6 hours until life support failure. "You have 1 hour to decide," Mirai said. "I suggest you use it wisely." The screen went dark. Torvax looked around his dead bridge. His officers stared back at him with 4-eyed terror. The greatest fleet in the Mendari Collective had been defeated without a single shot being fired. 45 minutes later, Torvax sent his surrender. Captain Mirai stood on her bridge, watching as human ships began towing the disabled Mendari vessels. 2,000 warships captured, 0 human casualties. The first battle of the war was over. Sunho approached her with a report. "Sir, all enemy crews are being processed. No resistance. They seem shocked." "They should be," Mirai said quietly. "They thought they were going to conquer us. They did not understand what they were fighting." She looked out at the stars, thinking about all the other Council fleets heading toward human space. The cage was just one weapon. There were dozens more waiting to be used. "Send a message to Admiral Park," she ordered. "Tell him the first engagement was successful. Tell him humanity is ready for round 2. The message traveled across the light years to Earth, and Admiral Park Junho, reading it in his command center, smiled again. This was only the beginning. The news of the Kepler 442 disaster spread through the Galactic Council like fire through dry grass. 2,000 ships, the entire Mendari First Fleet. Captured without a single shot fired. High Chancellor Vorix called an emergency meeting. Representatives from all 47 species filled the Grand Chamber again, but this time there were no cheers. There was only fear and confusion. "Explain this to me," Vorix demanded, his scales dark with anger. "How does a primitive species with 7 ships defeat 2,000 of our best warships?" Chief Scientist Vralix of the Torini Hive stepped forward. Her insect-like body clicked nervously as she spoke. "We have analyzed all available data, High Chancellor. The humans used some kind of quantum resonance field. It specifically targeted the crystalline power structures in our ships. Then we will change our power structures," Vorix said. "It is not that simple." Vralix's compound eyes reflected her worry. "All Council species use the same basic technology. We have shared knowledge for 12,000 years. Our power systems, our drives, our shields, they all work on the same principles." So the humans have studied us for 30 years. They know exactly how our technology works, and they have built weapons designed to break it. Vorix slammed his staff against the floor. "Then build different technology. High Chancellor, it would take decades to redesign everything, centuries perhaps. The humans have already done this work. They developed in isolation. Their technology evolved differently from ours. We cannot simply—" "Enough!" Vorix's 4 eyes blazed with fury. "We have 47 species. We have millions of ships. We will overwhelm them with numbers." But as the weeks passed, it became clear that numbers were not enough. The Rithani swarm sent their biological fleet to the human colony of New Inshin. These were living ships, grown from organic matter and controlled by pheromone signals. They could heal themselves. They could reproduce. They were nearly impossible to destroy with conventional weapons. The humans did not use conventional weapons. Instead, they released clouds of synthetic pheromones that confused the living ships. The Rithani vessels stopped responding to commands. Some attacked each other. Others simply drifted away into deep space, following false signals to nowhere. The entire Rithani fleet was neutralized in 3 hours. The Vorlani Empire attacked next. Their ships used powerful plasma weapons that could melt through any known material. They had conquered 30 species with these weapons. Surely the humans had no defense. The humans had magnetic field generators. When the Vorlani fired their plasma, the human ships simply bent it away. The superheated death passed harmlessly around human vessels like water flowing around a rock. Then the humans responded with their own weapons, which the Vorlani shields could not stop. Another fleet defeated. Another victory for humanity. On Earth, in a secret facility hidden beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province, Director Shin Yunji briefed Admiral Junho and General Quan Tae-woo on their progress. Yunji was 55 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair. She had dedicated her entire life to this project. When she was young, she had been one of the first scientists recruited to study the Council probe. Now she commanded thousands of researchers working on technologies that should not exist. "We have deployed 7 different weapon systems so far," she explained, pointing to holographic displays. "Each one targets a specific weakness in Council technology." General Quan studied the displays with his usual serious expression. "And if they adapt?" "They cannot adapt fast enough," Yunji replied. "That is the beauty of our approach. We did not develop weapons against their ships. We developed weapons against their assumptions." Explain, Junho said. Yunji walked to a larger display that showed the galactic map. For 12,000 years, the Council has controlled all technological development. They share knowledge. They standardize everything. Every species uses the same basic technology because the Council taught them the same basic science. She pressed a button, and the display changed to show human technology compared to Council technology. Humans developed alone. We were never taught the Council way, so our technology evolved differently. Our computers work differently. Our power systems work differently. Our weapons work differently. We are incompatible, Junho said quietly. Exactly, Yunji nodded. The Council has never faced an enemy whose technology they cannot understand. They can study our weapons after we use them, but by then we have already moved to the next weapon. We are always one step ahead because we do not play by their rules. Quan crossed his arms. How many weapon systems do we have in reserve? 43 more ready for deployment. Another 60 in development. Yunji allowed herself a rare smile. 30 years of preparation, General. 30 years of watching, learning, and building. The Council thought they were observing a primitive species. They did not realize that we were observing them too. Far away in the Grand Chamber, High Chancellor Vorix received report after report of defeat. The crystalline Dominion's energy warriors had been shattered by specific light frequencies. The Mendari Second Fleet had been stopped by gravity wells that appeared from nowhere. The Vorlani ground forces had been defeated by human soldiers who seemed immune to plasma burns. How? Vorix whispered to himself late one night, alone in his chambers. How are they doing this? He looked at the reports again. The humans had no numerical advantage. They had no territorial advantage. They had been spacefaring for less than 3 centuries, while the Council had ruled for 12,000 years. But they kept winning, and the more Vorix studied the reports, the more he noticed something strange, something that disturbed him more than any weapon. In every battle, the human commanders did not seem afraid. They did not seem surprised. They did not seem desperate. They seemed like they had been expecting this. They seemed like they had been waiting. And sometimes, in the communication logs, he saw them smile. That smile haunted Vorix. It was the smile of someone who knew something you did not. The smile of a predator watching prey walk into a trap. For the first time in his long life, High Chancellor Vorix began to wonder if the Council had made a terrible mistake. Not just a tactical mistake, not just a strategic mistake, but a fundamental mistake about what humanity really was. The war had been going on for 8 months. The Galactic Council had lost over 6,000 ships. 32 attempted invasions had failed. Not a single human world had fallen. But the Council was learning. They were slow, but they were not stupid. High Chancellor Vorix ordered a change in strategy. If advanced technology could not defeat humanity, perhaps simple overwhelming force could. The Council gathered an army of 2 million ground soldiers from 20 different species. They loaded these soldiers onto transport ships designed to resist human weapons, and they sent them to invade the human colony world of New Busan. The plan was brutal, but logical. Land so many troops that the humans simply could not kill them all. Flood the planet with soldiers. Accept heavy losses, but take the world through sheer numbers. The first wave landed on a Tuesday morning local time. Sergeant Oh Do-yun watched from his position in the mountains as thousands of enemy transports descended through the clouds. He was 31 years old with a scar on his left cheek from a training accident. He had never fought in a real war before. None of them had. But he had trained for this his entire adult life. His squad of 12 soldiers was positioned at the entrance to Namsan Pass. This narrow path through the mountains was the only ground route to the colony's capital city. If the enemy wanted to reach the 3 million civilians behind them, they would have to come through here. "Sergeant," Private Kim Bo-young said nervously, "there are so many of them." Do-yun looked through his scope. The first enemy units were already approaching. He counted quickly. 300 soldiers at least, probably more behind them. His squad had 12 people, limited ammunition, and no hope of reinforcements for at least 6 hours. "Yes," Do-hyun said calmly. "There are many of them." "What do we do?" Do-hyun checked his rifle one more time. Then he looked at his squad. 12 faces stared back at him. 12 young men and women who had signed up to protect humanity. "We hold this pass," he said. "No matter what. We hold it until reinforcements arrive." The first attack came 20 minutes later. The Minbari warriors charged up the pass, confident in their numbers. They had never fought humans before, only heard stories of how their ships had been defeated. Ground combat would be different, their commanders had promised. On the ground, superior numbers always won. They were wrong. Do-hyun's squad opened fire from concealed positions. The narrow pass became a killing zone. Minbari soldiers fell by the dozens. When they tried to climb the mountain walls to flank the humans, they found that humans had also planted explosive traps. The first attack was driven back with over 100 enemy casualties. Do-hyun's squad had lost no one. But the enemy did not stop. They sent more soldiers, and more and more. By the third hour, Do-hyun had lost 4 soldiers. Kim Bo-young was among them, killed by enemy fire while dragging a wounded comrade to safety. Ammunition was running low. Everyone was tired. The enemy commander, a Vorlani warlord named Krath, watched from the safety of his command post. He had studied the battle reports carefully. The humans were holding, but they could not hold forever. It was simple mathematics. He had 300 soldiers left. The humans had 8. "Send everyone," Krath ordered. "All remaining forces, overwhelm them." The final assault began. Do-hyun watched 300 enemy soldiers march toward his position. He had 7 squad mates left, all wounded. They had maybe 100 rounds of ammunition between them. "Sergeant," Corporal Yu Mina said quietly, "we cannot win this." "No," Do-hyun agreed. "We probably cannot." "Then why are we still here?" Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "Because behind us are 3 million people, families, children, people who cannot fight. If we run, they die. If we stay, maybe reinforcements arrive in time. Maybe they do not. But we give those people a chance." He loaded his last magazine. "That is what we do, Corporal. We give people a chance." The enemy charged. Do-hyun's squad fought back with everything they had. When they ran out of bullets, they fought with knives. When their knives broke, they fought with rocks and fists. Warlord Krath watched in confusion. His soldiers outnumbered the humans 40-1, but the humans would not fall. They would not retreat. They kept fighting even with wounds that should have killed them. One human soldier with both legs broken was still firing from behind a rock. Another had lost his weapon and was strangling a Minbari warrior with his bare hands. A female soldier who had been shot 3 times was still shouting orders to her comrades. And through it all, Sergeant Do-hyun was laughing. Krath did not understand. Why was the human laughing? His squad was dying. His position was being overrun. He had no chance of survival. Do-hyun's voice echoed across the battlefield, broadcast by his damaged communication device. "You do not understand," he shouted at the enemy. "We have been doing this to each other for 10,000 years. You think you scare us? You think this is hard? This is nothing. This is a normal Tuesday." He pulled something from his vest, a detonator. "For 30 years we knew you were coming. You think we did not prepare the ground?" Krath felt sudden fear. "Stop! Stop the attack! Fall back!" But it was too late. Do-hyun pressed the button. Explosions ripped through the pass. Charges that the humans had buried months ago erupted from the mountain walls. Rocks and fire consumed everything. Krath's remaining forces were buried under tons of stone. When the dust settled, the pass was completely blocked. No army could get through for days, maybe weeks. Reinforcements arrived 2 hours later. They found Sergeant Oh Do-yun buried under rubble, unconscious but alive. His hands were still gripping his rifle. Of his original 12 soldiers, 4 had survived. 300 enemy soldiers were dead or captured. The Battle of Namsan Pass became legend, not just among humans, but across the galaxy. Council species whispered about the warriors who would not stop fighting, the soldiers who smiled at death, the species that had spent 10,000 years fighting itself and had become something terrifying in the process. Sergeant Do-hyun was awarded the Coalition Medal of Valor, humanity's highest honor. When reporters asked him why he had kept fighting when victory seemed impossible, he gave a simple answer: because someone had to. And we were there. That was humanity, not the technology, not the secret weapons, not the 30 years of preparation, the will that would not break, the smile that never faded, the absolute refusal to surrender. And the galaxy was finally beginning to understand what they were really fighting. 1 year had passed since the Galactic Council declared war on humanity. High Chancellor Vorix sat alone in his chambers, reading the final reports. 8,000 ships lost. 43 ground invasions failed. Not a single human world captured. And now, human counterattacks were pushing into Council space. Species that had been ruled by the Council for thousands of years were welcoming the humans as liberators. The war was over. Everyone knew it. The only question was how it would end. Vorix picked up his communication device and sent a message he never thought he would send, a request for peace talks. The meeting was arranged on a space station in neutral territory, far from any planet or star. Vorix brought his most trusted advisors. The humans sent Admiral Park Jun-ho. When Vorix entered the conference room, he saw Jun-ho already sitting at the table. The human admiral was old by their species' standards, with silver hair and calm eyes. He looked tired but peaceful. Vorix sat across from him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Vorix asked the question that had haunted him for a year. How? Jun-ho raised an eyebrow. How what? How did you defeat us? Vorix's voice was quiet, almost pleading. We are 47 species. We have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of civilizations. You are one species from one small planet. You have been traveling among the stars for less than 300 years. How did you win? Jun-ho was silent for a long time. He looked at Vorix with something that might have been pity. Then he began to speak. When we first detected your probe 30 years ago, we did not know what to expect. Some of our people hoped for friendship. Others feared war. Our governments argued for months about what to do. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But eventually we reached a decision. We would prepare for the worst, not because we wanted war, but because our history had taught us that hoping for the best was not enough. Your history. Chancellor, humans have been fighting each other since before we could write. We have survived ice ages that killed most life on our planet. We have survived plagues that killed half our population. We have survived 2 wars that covered our entire world. We even came close to destroying ourselves with nuclear weapons. Jun-ho leaned forward. Every generation of humans has faced extinction, and every generation has survived, not through luck, not through hope, but through preparation, determination, and the absolute refusal to give up. Vorix listened with growing unease. When you declared war, Jun-ho continued, we were not surprised. We were relieved. Relieved? For 30 years, we prepared in secret. We watched your technology. We studied your weaknesses. We built weapons that you could not understand. But we always wondered if we were being paranoid. Maybe the galaxy would welcome us. Maybe peace was possible. Jun-ho's expression hardened. When you declared war, you proved that we were right to prepare. You proved that the universe is exactly what we always feared. hostile, dangerous, a place where only the strong survive. He stood up and walked to the window. Stars glittered in the endless darkness outside. You wanted to know why we smiled when you declared war. That is why. We were relieved to finally know the truth, and we were confident because we had spent 30 years getting ready. Vorax felt his scales growing pale. You expected this. From the very beginning. We did. And the weapons. The technology we could not understand. Developed in secret, hidden from your observation. We let you watch our civilian technology. We let you think we were primitive. We wanted you to underestimate us. Junho turned back to face Vorax. But technology is not why we won, Chancellor. Technology was just the tool. Do you know why we really won? Vorax shook his head slowly. We won because we never considered losing. Every human soldier, every pilot, every civilian knew that failure meant extinction. There was no retreat, no surrender, no acceptable loss. We would fight until we won, or until every last one of us was dead. He paused. Your soldiers fight for territory, for glory, for the council. Our soldiers fight for survival, for their families, for the right to exist. There is no comparison. The room fell silent. Finally, Vorax spoke. What do you want? Name your terms. Junho returned to the table and pushed a datapad toward the Chancellor. Dissolution of the Council's military authority. Every species governs itself. No more forced membership. No more conquered peoples. A new galactic charter based on voluntary cooperation. Vorax looked at the terms. They would end 12,000 years of Council power. They would change everything. And if we refuse, he asked quietly, then we keep fighting. Junho's voice was calm but certain. We have been at war, in one form or another, for our entire existence. We can continue for as long as necessary. Can you say the same? Vorax thought about the reports, the battles, the defeats, the species that were already abandoning the Council to join the humans. He thought about the soldiers who had laughed while dying, the commanders who smiled at impossible odds. He thought about what it would mean to fight such an enemy forever. We accept, he said finally. Junho nodded. A wise decision, Chancellor. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in it. Peacefully if possible, violently if necessary. He stood and offered his hand. Vorax looked at it for a moment, then reached out and took it. One last question, Vorax said. If we had offered true peace 30 years ago, if we had welcomed you as equals instead of threatening you as inferiors, would this war have happened? Junho considered the question. Probably not. But you could not do that, could you? 12,000 years of dominance made you believe you were superior. You could not imagine treating us as equals. He released Vorax's hand. That was your mistake, Chancellor, not your technology, not your strategy. Your belief that you were better than us. Because you were wrong. We are not better than you. We are not worse than you. We are just very, very good at surviving. He walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back. And survivors, Chancellor, never give up. No matter how dark things get. No matter how impossible the odds. We keep fighting. We keep smiling. Because we know something that conquerors never understand. What is that? Junho smiled, that same calm, knowing smile that had haunted Vorax for a year. We know that eventually the storm always ends, and whoever is still standing when it ends is the winner. We have been standing for 10,000 years. We will be standing for 10,000 more. He left without another word, and Vorax sat alone in the conference room, finally understanding what humanity really was. Not a species, not a civilization, but survivors, pure and simple. Survivors who had crawled out of the mud, reached for the stars, and refused to let anything stop them. The galaxy had declared war on such a species, and the galaxy had lost, because survivors do not lose. They endure, they adapt, they smile, and they keep going no matter what, until there is no one left to stand against them. That was humanity's secret. That was why they smiled. And now the entire galaxy knew it.